exit and give way to the other participants who are waiting. We are very sorry about this. And we would herewith, we will start very shortly. Thank you everyone for, I will just admit the remaining participants. Requesting all managing committee members to please exit. Thank you. Mr. President, with your permission, can we start?
Yes, and it's our tradition that if we have more people than chairs, we as managing committee members stand. We should be the first one to make way to participants. So I appeal to my committee members to follow the same tradition. With this, floor is yours, Xerxes. I will be off the screen and I will mute. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you today to AMTOI Dialogue Series 1, Session 5. AMTOI Dialogues is an initiative by AMTOI to bring about like-minded people from our industry to view success stories in and outside our industry and gain inspiration, knowledge, and learning from it to better their own businesses and their surroundings thereof. Today, it gives me distinct pleasure to welcome you to our session, 4 Generations of Doing Business and the Way Forward by the Katgara brothers. As such, they need no introduction, and their company, Gina and Company as well. For us in our industry, Gina is not an ordinary organization. It is an institution with a 120-year-old legacy, having a diversified portfolio of logistics, offering international freight forwarding, co-loading, customs brokerage, I3PL, temperature control logistics, door-to-door consolidations, charters, projects, coastal movements, serving a wide range of industries from engineering to automobile to pharmaceutical and life sciences, retail and fashion, special projects, renewable energy, defense, and government public sector undertakings. Today, with a team of 1,200 people, spread over 28 offices across India and Australia, they have been consistently ranked among the top 5 logistic companies in India. Let us start today with the origin of Gina. In 1900, Palanji Katgara and Jamshedji Dastur established Gina in Mumbai with a small finance of USD 75, a small capital. The condition of Jinabhai was that the company should be named after him. And this, as they say, the rest is history. Today, Gina is being managed by the 4th generation of the Katgara family, namely Sam, Cyrus, and Homi Katgara. We are honored to have them with us today to tell us about their story, which we hope will be of immense benefit to all those listening, and how a family business can sustain all its challenges and continue to live and work in harmony and keep creating history. So I will welcome Sam, Amy, and Cyrus. I request you to unmute yourselves, please. For those dialogues, we will be having a short question-answer session followed with questions from the audience, which I would request you to kindly put on the chat box, and thereafter we will, I will read it out to the Sam, Cyrus, and Homi, and they would answer it. So welcome, Sam, Cyrus, and Homi. I hope you can hear me. Hello, can you hear me, Sam?
Yeah, there's a little disturbance in the background, but yes, more or less I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yes. Cyrus,
disturbance in the background.
My end, no. There's nothing here, so I don't know.
Not on mute.
Now, I guess it is. I can hear you all very clearly.
Okay, let's go ahead then.
Okay. So welcome, gentlemen. And my first question would be that, succession planning and induction of the 4th and 5th generation working harmoniously with each other. Most businesses, they say the 1st generation builds it, the 1st generation starts it, 2nd generation builds it, and the 3rd and 4th systematically destroy it. You have broken that myth and the 4th, you are the 4th, and now the 5th generation is coming in. So how did you manage this? How did you manage the harmony, the succession planning, which is so relevant to our family businesses as well.
Thank you, Success, and hello, everybody. So I think the correct word would be the present tense. Present tense. We haven't managed it yet. We are in the process of managing it.
I've managed for 120 years, so I don't see why you can't.
What I meant is the fourth to fifth generation. So our fifth generation are actually, since the last 12 to 18 months, they've been in training at various aspects of the business. And I can't say that they are yet comfortably taking over the business reins, but we hope they will at some point, and that the transition would be smooth. But I think one learning for all of us in our generation has clearly been that we need to do more of the adapting than the other way around. So in our generation, when we came into the business, we didn't have too much flexibility or too many choices. We had to do things the way they were being done all along. But I think it's a different world we're all living in today. So that's a little learning for all of us at in our generation. But like I said, I'm hopeful that they will come into the driving seat at some point.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they've done I can see them. I came once to your office. I saw them moving in.
Yeah, they're very actively involved, no doubt. But
How do you manage, Omi? So you have seen your father was the second generation. You took over, etc. Everything. So how does the succession planning actually take place? There's an induction program, the ethos? How is the harmony between three branches of the family or two branches of the family? How does that happen? Anyone, Omi or Sam or?
Success, it's today we are realizing because we are in that situation where we have to hand over to the next generation. So we are also in our own way appreciating what the three generations before us had to really go through. And I think the key to at least what our experience is, where we have survived 4 generations, and to put into perspective, though 30% of the businesses transit into the second generation, only 3% really transit into the fourth generation. So, and this is a global, it's not just India, this is a global statistic that I found. And there is a strong reason for it, because it's not just hunky-dory that you can pass on the legacy year on year and to the next generation. There are certain sacrifices also. And there is, of course, a big culture intake that we have to take throughout our lives to accept this. So to start with culture, it's basically indoctrinated into us from a very young age that we are one family, whether we are brothers or cousins, we are one family. And very truly put, united we stand and divided we fall. So everybody contributes. So do not look at how much you contribute and how much someone else contributes. As long as everybody contributes, it's superb. And if you try to say that I'm contributing more and he's contributing less, there is the beginning of the end. Likewise, very often in big joint families, not only in business, there is a lot of comparison. So if you are going to start comparing to what you have and what you don't have, again is the beginning of the end. So the only question you need to ask yourself is, do I have anything less? And if the answer is no, don't look otherwise. Don't look left, don't look right. And these will be really the culture that has been brought into us from generation to generations. The certain sacrifices or the certain things that have really gone a long way is that the first thing is that we, as partners of the company, through the generations, have never taken out really the profits. They always plowed back into the business. So this is something which people find quite strange, because in business, you always want to take out as much money as you make, but we always put it back in the business. We are not into any other shares or that sort of market. It's always going back into our business. That's how I frankly think we have survived the COVID situation, where a lot of companies were finding difficult financially. And so that would be a thing. The other very difficult part of it was that we, in generations, have only accepted the male heirs to take over the business. Now, this may sound in today's world very difficult and may need looking at changing also. But through the 3 to 4 generations that we have come, this has been a very big transition sacrifice, because there were ladies in the family and they had to be more understanding and more cooperative to accept this. Right. That still be part of a big family and be a happy family. So really the credit goes to the lady members in our family to keep us together, though there was this sort of differentiation made that only the male heirs take over. And that could be one of the reasons why we have survived 4 generations.
Does that rule still hold good? I know many of you all have.
That's why there are some harsh sacrifices that we also have to make as a family.
Okay.
These would be the few things that I would feel have really made us go through the 4th generation.
So I'm just curious before I move on to the next question. Like, I'm sure that in these, you all take decisions collectively, right? For investments, for policy decisions, and I'm sure that you all don't agree all the time. So how do you finally arrive at the decision between the three of you all?
Luxus, I'll answer that one. I think you agreed all the time, so now you can go ahead.
That's good.
I don't think we've ever disagreed on anybody. We had zero differences. And if anyone had a difference, I think we just kept quiet about it and looked at the better, what is the best for the company, what's best for our people, what's best for everybody.
Okay.
So maybe you can take the next question. We have no disagreements.
So that's good to know. You know, we Parsis are known for fighting even with ourselves if no one is around. So you guys have managed to keep it together for so long is an achievement in itself. Okay, so my next question is that one of the secret of the successes of Jina has been its growth story for 120 years. Its longevity has been pioneering efforts made by your company through the generations. Each generation has done something unique, something out of the box, something which has never been done before. So in your 120-year history, could you let us know a few instances which were really path-breaking in logistics and freight forwarding that you Who would like to take that question? I mean,
Let's go back in time, because when you ask this question, I would put it in a slightly different. What would be really out of the box situations that really would make us different? Because everybody has done air freight consolidation, this XYZ. So if I was to go back one generation before us, in the 50s, when there was really no advertisement in the country, our previous generation, they had a concept that let's have an exhibition train. So they got a train, a full charter train, and they invited all the manufacturers to display their wares on this train. And this train really went from city to city, village to village, town to town. And people came to see what sort of wares were there and what sort of things were being manufactured, something in Calcutta, someone wanting to buy in Chennai. And that's how really a new concept started of these exhibition trains. And they ran a number of these exhibition trains as they became more popular. And different parts of the country could see what was really being manufactured in India and make connection with the people who are manufacturing, and then they could sell. So that would be quite a unique concept, which we can think really back to.
which year was that?
It was in the early 50s.
Okay, wow. This was done by your grandfather, I presume.
Father and uncle.
Yeah, okay. Then any other instances which you had like that, which were?
Sam, that you reminded me now of the train. In our generation, we had actually we hired a barge, again done by my father and my uncle, but we were very small. It was like 25 years ago. I was lucky to be on the barge myself, and the barge started in the north of Europe, and we sailed all the way along the river Rhine to the south of Europe. We stopped at 10 different ports, again having exhibitions of garments, handicraft, leather goods, carpets, gems and jewelry. And in the evening, their thinking was so much in advance. We had beautiful dinners and fashion show for every port we stood on. So Indian fashion shows were there. Every night we had a fashion show. We hired the top models. We took them again. Of course, that was the better part of the sea journey. Broke the leg of our journey also. But, it was so much forward thinking. And in those times to have a fashion show on board. We got off the road. We got off the ship. We sold tickets. We sold every show was sold out. There was not a single show on the ship that was not sold out. So I think it was again something so unique to hire a barge, sail on the river Rhine, and I don't think it's been never done before. Again, also sorry.
Yeah.
Anything that could be some other content.
That's really path break. I mean, this is something unique. I don't think it's been done also again. I've never recalled it being done again as well.
It's a little expensive, but it's okay.
What other things? What have you? Anything you guys have done during your tenure at the helm? I mean, something that was unique, something that was really out of the norm.
I'll share one more earlier one because I think it's again going back in history and it's etched in all our memories very strongly. Before the Second World War, Mitsui Bank, Japanese bank, wanted to set up shop in India. And I don't know how it happened, but they set up their first office desk in our office, in Gina's office, the bank. And then, of course, they got their own premises and things. And in 1945, when Second World War broke out, they had to rush back in a hurry. They just left literally overnight and left the keys with us in our custody.
Oh,
They had that trust and faith in us. And 2-3 years later, they came back after the war was over and they found everything just the way they had left it. And it was very proud for us at that point of time also.
I have no doubt about that. And you have been doing various projects in Africa, very challenging projects, I know, in Africa. So stadiums, setting up turnkey projects like in stadiums, parliament buildings, etc. That is also not very common. I mean, it takes huge door to door in war zones. I know of some stories where your colleagues have also gone through hell there.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's uncharted territory, right, for all of you all.
That was about 2 years ago, Narcis, and it was a very unique movement for us also, actually. I think the first time we did as many charters as we did then. There were totally 12 aircraft chartered, a mixture of 777s and AN aircraft, AN 124s.
Antennas.
Yes.
Those are the largest. Yeah.
Huge movement. It was actually not at all any air cargo worthy business, but because of the time constraint the contractor had, they had to set up the stadium. Prime Minister Modi was likely to go there for the inauguration, etc. So they had no choice but to airlift it at a huge, huge cost.
Yes.
This was in Niger, and one of the government authorities there told us even the cost of your freight is more than the GDP of Niger. So it was, but it was finally paid for by the Indian contractor.
Good.
Yeah, but it was a very unique movement.
Very unique. Okay. My next question, moving on. So, I mean, 120 years is a long time. So, I mean, there are going to be various stories along the way. I want you to list, any one of you to list two aspects of it. Your greatest achievement in your 120-year history and your biggest blunder or near-death moment when everything could have been lost and how you recovered.
You really want to hear that?
Why not? Because both are part of the success story, right? I mean, so let us, it gives the others inspiration, including myself, that when the shit's flying, you can still manage to get everything working. Go ahead. I mean, I leave it to any one of you to answer it, whoever's comfortable with it.
Okay. So I think, yeah, I'll start with the near-death one because that was earlier. It was not in our generation. And again, it was probably during the Second World War time when the business really plummeted and probably went next to zero. So I know our dad and uncle, at that point of time, our grandfather died at a very young age in 1947. And Sam's father, Nari, was 18. My dad, Adi, was 17. They were both studying, but Nari had to overnight leave his job, leave his studies and join the business to take care of the business, which as it is was floundering with the Second World War. And they really had rough times in those initial few years. And he sacrificed his education for that. My father went on to complete his BCom. But in order to survive, I think they had to sell a lot of our personal properties at that point. And there was a threat of closure and a sword hanging on our heads, not able to pay salaries probably and expenses, etc. So they had to really go the distance to sort of make ends meet. So that was a near-death defining moment not in our life, but in the company's history.
So this would be around 1948, 50?
1947.
1947. Okay.
During our lifetime, we also had one almost, I would say, close to, I would say, defining moment when we were for many years working with a very strong German agent called Schenker. A lot of you must have heard of him.
Yes, of course.
Almost 12 years, we are working exclusively with Schenker worldwide. And we really grew the business for Schenker in India. So they came to a stage when Schenker felt that now that they have established through Gina, they can do it on their own. And they told that either we sell to them or they will start on their own. And it was a very big decision because almost 90% of our business was controlled by them. But we took that tough call and said, okay, even after so many years of existence, we will start from almost scratch zero. And Cyrus, Homi, and myself, we undertook 5 weeks at a stretch trips overseas, scouting from Australia to the US and South America, Scandinavia, the world. We actually were going literally living through our suitcases for 5 weeks, seeing about 5 to 6 agents a day. And when we came back, we really consolidated all what we did and started and took that stand that we have a local hero agent in every country, and we now work exclusively worldwide with a strong multinational. So I think that for there we built up business to zero to where we are now, and really surviving because we had many offers, very lucrative offers, but we felt no, we are strong enough to stand on our own feet.
I think surviving is the wrong term. Thriving is the right term.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yoxis.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's really inspiring. And all is lost. Many of us have gone through that, and it's been very tough to recover after that. So great. I mean, and then we move to your greatest achievement. What has been the most, landmark moment in Gina's illustrious history? Who would like to take that?
One of the, while Sam and Homi are thinking, one of the great stuff was that for about 5 years, we are appointed to the ambassador for the Port of Halifax, and something completely different from freight forwarding. They brought in Canadian delegations. We took actually Canadian delegations to Canada. We took 2 from steel, 2 from retail, all different industry segments. And then we organized B2B meetings in Canada, and then they organized B2B meetings in India. We took them to exhibition, we took them all over the place. And it was, like I said, it was completely something different of a profile because you are dealing with completely different type of clientele, different profiles. You are dealing with ministers. In fact, the defense minister, I just can't get his name just now. It just slipped my mind. He was tipped off to be the Prime Minister of Canada, and he was actually at our house in our offices. I mean, Canadian, they are very casual. They don't come with big security guns and ammunition. They are so casual when they're with us. So they were literally at our farm, dining, wining with us and enjoying. So again, that was something different than freight forwarding. So I thought that I'll share with you. It was quite a defining moment those few years.
Yeah.
Full stop.
It was a recognition, the prestige.
Yeah.
And any other thing, any big project which was like something which was truly historic or something that you guys have done something?
We've done, if we start on projects, we've done so many projects that if I start listing out our projects, I mean, you're going to need another half an hour more. So I think we can take the next question. Unless Sam and Homi have a defining moments to go ahead, I'm okay with that.
Sam, Homi, anything?
What Gina is doing in terms of business, let's focus on how the legacy and the generation.
Yeah. Okay, good, great. So, I mean, see, freight forwarding and the logistics industry is going through a huge change at the moment. We are seeing that the COVID-19 impact has been huge for many companies. Most mid-size and small-size companies are in the red. Liners are now doing backward and forward integration, doing the first mile, last mile. How do you foresee this industry growing in the future, the next decade? No one can predict the next 50 years now, not even God himself, I think, the way things are changing. How do you foresee things changing? How do you think we logistic players need to do to survive? This is a big question. I think it's on everyone's mind. So, I mean, even all 3 of you all can give your individual views. So please, the floor is yours.
If I look at my crystal bowl, which I'm having just now, a sip of water, I think we should be very positive. First of all, we are in India. Let's not give a gloomy picture. This is the most positive picture I'm going to give you. India, we are in a situation where we are on a growth mode. India is going to be the next manufacturing base after China. if we think forwarding is going to be gloom, it's not going to be a gloom. It's going to be a boom, I would say. There are massive number of importers, exporters, and the businesses, there are lakhs and lakhs of importer exporters. And there are many custom brokers, there are many freight forwarders, but we are only 5,000, while manufacturers could be in lakhs and crores. So the market is huge for us. It is not a small market. Then the government has taken out so many good schemes recently. They have put productivity linked incentive. They started that for the mobiles and they'll put it into the other sector. There are also India, of course, this is a very big political statement. From 2.5 trillion economy, we are going to become a 5 trillion economy. That just shows you the potential of the business there is. There is one, and out of that 1 trillion is going to be out of digitalization. One advice to all my friends and everybody is watching, please embrace digital technology. That's going to be your savior. You're not going to be surviving without investment in digital technology. And I think everybody has taken cognizance of that. That's all I say. Just be positive.
I know that Gina has done fantastic work in the IT space. In the last 20 odd years, I have seen a complete sea change from what it used to be, a traditional old freight broking CHA, to what it is now. You have your own ERP systems, you have your own apps, you have your own in-house IT development team. That's huge investment, right? I mean, and you think that will be the game changer for you all?
The IT is definitely the game changer. We are trying to do, unfortunately, I shouldn't be making this statement in public, but I have to do it. We are far ahead of the industry. When I'm not talking about freight industry, I'm talking about the shippers and consignees and the importers. They are not that easy to adapt this technology. We want to go digital. We want to do without paper, but everyone keeps asking for bills, backup, this, that. So we are far ahead of the industry where it's concerned this. We don't want paper. We are now hugely educating every exporter, every importer, what are the benefits of going digital. And yes, industry is accepting that for a change. But we are very hopeful that will change very, very fast.
Okay, that's great. But how, I mean, that's of course what you have said. How do you foresee now? See, with your size and magnitude, you being in the top 5, you will pull through for sure. What is your advice for mid and small size freight forwarders who really can't compete against the buying power of MNCs and global giants? And with the main threat now is coming very honestly and bluntly from the liners with their own forward and backward integration, and which they're doing.
Again, should I go to my crystal ball, or would Sam and Homi want to answer that one?
A glass, is there a water glass or a gin glass? First tell me that.
No, it's a water glass. I'm a teetotaler.
Okay. Oh my God, that's not good. Anyway. So Sam, would you, or Homi, would you like to take that question?
I would be positive again for the medium and small, because like Cyrus mentioned, there are billions of exporters and importers. All are not big and all are not multinational. There is such a big segment of the medium and small ones there also. And they are not going to be customers for the big boys. They'll be looking for a different kind of flexibility, which the medium and the small, if they are innovative forwarders, if they're going to keep up with time, if they're going to move with IT solutions, they will survive.
And
they will thrive, like you say.
There will be consolidation. For sure, there is going to be consolidation. You cannot do without consolidation, but that's the global phenomena. It's nothing new to India. So there is going to be some consolidation for sure.
What's your vision for your own organization for the next 10 years? Like, what are your thoughts on how are you going to be? Are you going to go in for acquisitions? Are you going to go in for any expansion, infrastructure expansion, or what is your plan?
See, we have already done few small acquisitions. They're not very significant, but yes, the last acquisition was very super. We bought in a company it was a critical company doing shipments of blood samples and human organs and this very critical stuff of shipments. And today that company has been turned around. It was a losing company. We've turned it around in the last 4 years. It's actually one of the most profitable companies on a GP level in the group, and it's like we are doing almost 15 to 20,000 shipments a month on this on these critical shipments. So we have a good it was a good experience, that one. Then there are very other small acquisitions we've done. They're okay. We could be looking at something in the future, which we do not say no to, but it's not going to be something good. Of course, if we can buy Shankars once again, it would be great.
Why not? Why not? So that's my next. So that's great. I mean, and this is an Indian company which you took over. No names, not required. But so Indian or an overseas company which the
No, Indian.
My next question is slightly contentious. Apologies in advance if it is that. Would tomorrow, if the right price is there, like this is a very that you should not be wedded sentimental about your business. You should look at the bottom line, look at the money. Tomorrow, the right price, exactly what you want or etc. Would Gina consider offloading? Would the Katgara brothers consider offloading Gina?
I think Sam always after this.
Or our diamonds are forever? I mean, what would you?
What question you're asking, I would say during our lifetime, many attractive proposals have come which could have made us retire for maybe 3 to 4 generations.
Okay.
At the end of the day, when the 3 of us get together and try to make a decision, the decision is very clear that today we are not doing a business. We are actually having a hobby in Gina. Now today, can I sell a hobby? You answer.
Beautiful answer. There's no revert on that. No retort on that. Question answer. Well understood. Okay, moving on. Just last 2 questions. One is, now Gina is it's always, we know that Gina is very active and the Katgara family is very active in its CSR activities. And it's so important to give back to society. You make and you have to give back and enrich not only your lives, but those around you. So could one of you, I think Omi or anyone, take this question about what initiatives you have done I know what you have done, but I want the audience to know the
Yeah, sure. So I think long before CSR was mandatory in India, we've had this in our blood, I think, to give back to society. And Sam's dad, Nari uncle, and my father, we started Katgara Foundation in the mid-70s with a personal donation of 2,000 rupees from each of their pockets. And of course, from there on, it's grown and it's reasonably substantial today. And we every year sort of give a percentage of our profits to Katgara Foundation for charitable work and stuff like that. So I can share a few of the landmark things we've done there. I think till today we don't support too many organizations or institutions. We do a few, but majority, if it is direct help to the individual patient in the case of medical or in the case of education to the student. So these are our 2 thrust areas, education and medical. And till today, between both these, we have had over 10,000 individuals as we speak. A few years ago, we embarked on a midday meal scheme. And even now, we are feeding about 2,000 children across schools in India. Initially, it started in Maharashtra, but now it's gone to other areas also. And that's part of it is with Akshay Patra, which is, I think most of you might have heard of it. It's a very well-established NGO doing great work. 1,000 meals a day. Yeah. We hold annual eye camps in every year for the poor. We give a lot of spectacles. We do a few cataract operations for them, all free of course. Another interesting CSR we did in about 6 years ago is in a small village called Jalimudi in the coast of Andhra Pradesh. And that's one of our other businesses. We have this air to water business. It's called the AWG industry, which basically it captures the humidity in the air and then we process it into clean drinking water.
Wow.
It's a little expensive. It's dependent on power or electricity or solar, whatever form of power. But we did it as a CSR at Jalimudi because we found that the village there was walking 6 kilometers each way to get a pot of water.
Okay.
And it was a smallish village of 600 people. We installed this machine which gave 1,000 liters a day. And they could not believe that it's real, that they are getting water at their drinking water at the doorstep. They were crying and it was a very emotional moment when we installed it. But the whole village drinks water from that one unit today. So that was a very good CSR that we did and unique. Then I think in our Gina 100 years, when we had it in 2000, we were all debating internally whether we should splurge on big fancy parties. And finally, as a consensus, we decided we can't move away from the parties. We have to acknowledge our the airlines, the shipping lines, our customers, etc., and the staff. So we did that in the normal fashion. But what we created was then we said we should do a sizable donation, and we did that at Masina Hospital in Bombay, and created a separate ward over there, which we thought would go on, creating a legacy there. And it was in our 100 years, and also in recognition of Mr. Nadi Kankara, who had passed away a few years before that.
Wow.
We did that in his memory as well at that point of time. And about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we have a family home in Golwad, which is on the Gujarat border, near Dahanu, and it's a very old home, and we've got family ties attached to that place. So we partnered with a local educational institution there. It's a very big institution, and we set up a 20,000 square foot polytechnic center for them, which they were lacking. And we have over 1,000 students who are studying there now. So that was done in memory of my late dad, Nadi. So these are a few landmark things we've done on the CSR front. And I mean, CSR is always welcome. We are happy to do it.
Wow.
Oh, you forgot one more. We support dogs and pets also. Every month we are donating to some charities which do, because no one gives charities to animals. Everybody gives charities to human beings. But unfortunately, animals are left out. And recently, even I've become an animal lover. So we are
Part of the lockdown effect. Part of
yeah, I saw that they're looking after 400 dogs, one guy. So we keep supporting them.
Okay. No, great,
That's-
great. These are not few, these are a lot. I'm sure that you've toned it down a bit. So thank you. I think it's great what you guys are doing. So last question before we open the floor. This is a question actually which our president also requested me to ask you, that yours is a case study. Yours is a study of what you call an inspiration, how things have turned out. Would you consider mentoring the next gen from other companies to evolve, adapt, and have a smooth succession plan in place? Because this is a real challenge in most companies, if not all. It's the norm rather than the exception. So would you be willing to do that if someone wanting to get some inputs from you gentlemen?
So let's put it this way: if you are successful in making our fifth generation attracted to our business, the answer is yes.
Thank you.
I'm already going to just before COVID, I was going to Amity School in Noida, and I was taking all the lectures. I used to select the candidates which would join the school, and actually to refuse the candidates was the biggest. It's very difficult for you to say, oh, you are not good enough to join this school, because everybody is so hopeful wanting to join the school.
Correct,
So,
correct.
We do mentoring not at a big scale, but at a small scale just now, and open for it anyway.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sure that'll be very, very valued, and I'm sure some people will take you up on that. So thank you once again, Cyrus, Sam, and Homi. Really, really inspiring story. You have set a new record today of 100 participants. There have been a lot of disappointments because we never expected to cross 100. We never have. And today it has been truly a landmark day for us as well. We are deeply apologize to those who have been left out, but not to worry. We are recording it, so the link will be sent to all. Thank you once again. We will open the forum on the chat box for any questions that may be asked. And may I also request our president to unmute himself to come into the forum. Thank you once again, gentlemen. Really, thank you.
Zaxis, you have set a new record.
Yes.
You've always given one interview at a time. Sam has given, Homi has given, but you set the record of getting all three of us at one time. So again, compliments to Amtoy and Yo and Shantanu for setting another record for at least for us.
I called up Homi and actually told him that the answer is yes before I'm asking you the question. So then I bullied him into it. I'm grateful.
Thanks anyway.
The floor is yours, sir.
Well, I have known Katkaras and Jinnah for a long time. There is a old adage, and which I believe very strongly, that when you try to please everyone, you will end up pleasing nobody. And I have a strong faith in it. Yet Jina and Kadgara cousins are an exception. They have pleased their customers, their staff, their foreign associates, even their competitors. We all are in awe for them. And we always consider them as role model. And I am offering myself for mentorship if you accept a 59-year-old, young, I think not old person. I am offering myself and my son, of course. I would say that in short, in Marathi, there is a phrase called Dugdha Shankar used. And I know you will understand. Dugdha Shankar is adding sugar to the milk. It adds a lot of value. But I think you have traditional reasons for that. But you are more than that. And Jina and as Kadgaras, you are Dugdha Shankar Keshar. Means you have a saffron flavor for milk and sugar. So that's your contribution beyond traditional. So we are all proud of it. And this pride comes from our professional pride and our pride for family businesses. But I won't thank you for now. One is you are our own. We can't thank you, but there is a stronger reason. And Cyrus, you invited that reason. I will thank you when you buy Shankars. Till then, we are not going to thank you. I am a big fan of Indians buying foreign companies, and I feel let down when we sell ourselves to others. Of course, they have reason. I'm not standing in judgment, but that demoralizes us. So we will definitely, as an industry, I can promise multimodal transport operator, custom brokers, and logistics fraternity. We all have goodwill. We will be with you with Tana Mana Dhana, as we say, itself, with our money and with our good wishes with you. So that's the time I will be there to thank you and in support. And as we say, Amen or Tathastu, I will like you to say that. And with this, I have to thank participants and my friend Justice for putting up a wonderful event. We get a lot of requests for sharing their views. We will have another format where we will have people like you to address and discuss with our colleagues, because discrimination becomes a little difficult who to accept. A lot of people want to speak. So accommodate us, participants, and keep your interest. We will give that floor to you because members and others coming here is our real keen endeavor in bringing Amptoy dialogues. So with this, I would say Tathastu for Jina buying Shankars, and we look forward to you. Thank you, everyone. And Cyrus, you asked for it, and we look forward.
with a very lavish party after that.
I hope they're not listening to this conversation. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to make.
Exactly. It's going to
And
go.
now, Thursdays, if you want, we will keep the floor open for people who want to make their compliments. And I think if Cyrus and Sam has time, Pratap, our old friend, wants to say a few things from us. But our formal program is over now. We can have personal compliments being given. Our formal program is.
May I open the chat for Pratap Nair to speak?
Jarsis, you are the host.
Yeah, so can I open the chat for Pratap Nair to speak?
Yeah, Pratap, yes.
Okay.
And anyone else, now I think our formal event is over. Now it's for friends to interact with them for how much time they have. Sam and Cyrus has. Sam, Homi, Cyrus.
Hello, everyone. I must say this about these three gentlemen with whom I worked very closely. They are my mentors. These three brothers, what makes them different is they are a mix of good family background and good education. When these two things come together, money becomes a secondary aspect. Like Sam said, it's a hobby for them. I think it's a passion. The biggest CSR that they are doing is employing so many people, taking care of so many families across India, and creating people like me. I owe it to them. They have trained me, they've given me the complete freedom to grow up in their organization. And I've been very lucky to be working with them. And I'm also proud that they have not succumbed to any greed for money to sell their company. I would be very unhappy if tomorrow Gina is owned by somebody else or Gina's name doesn't exist. So I am happy that these three brothers are leading the organization to greater heights, and they become a living example for rest of the industry, people like us who will never think of selling ourselves. Maybe, like Cyrus said, some kind of a consolidation, some kind of corporation. It's a welcome thing. And I'm glad that the next generation also is joining, so that Gina, I've worked and I know they have never worked for money. They've never asked you to do anything wrong. They've never got business in the wrong way. These are all big examples or big experiences, big learning that I've learned from these three brothers and Gina and company per se. I did not work very closely with their fathers, but they knew me and I knew them. I have attended a few meetings. This family is a family to be recognized. And I would pray that all their dreams come true and they exist for another 500 years or 1,000 years or whatever it is. Let the company stay. Let them be a guiding light to everyone in the industry. I'm so grateful that I had an opportunity to work for them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Nair. So if everyone is if everyone is finished, then we can close this session and thank Cyrus, Homi, and Sam for their time.
I'd like to just thank Mr. Nair for his kind words, and especially, I'm almost choked when he started saying this, and I do not realize how important, but Mr. Nair, it's so nice of you to say such good things. Thank you very much, and I hope we can live up to your expectations.
Thank you. This has truly been one of our best sessions and most invigorating sessions, thought-provoking, and I leave it to the president to make the concluding remarks, if any.
No, I would say the Cyrus should conclude. That honor goes to him.
You are the boss. Shantanu, you do the conclusion, please.
I think it was wonderful. And see, I have known them for a long time, so I obviously have a soft corner, but we heard their former employees speaking about them with pride. Definitely like Gina to grow bigger and bigger and lead the industry. Now, I think one small example of humility, like we can speak for a long time. Sam is a co-convener of our Western Region chapter, and all my committee members said, Sam is such a senior person, such a big, he is Akai president and we're all. How dare you call him in that forum? I said, it's up to a policy that we induct person through regions. And I am sure Sam will respect our policy. He will not like him to be made exception. Said, no, convener, I will just be a co-convener. I think that is what leadership is about. It's not about position, where you occupy, where you sit. And that was a big boost for entire team and particularly our Western Region chapter. Cyrus, we cooperate well with your ACFI and we want your equal support. Of course, I see you active in NRC. So we look forward to have your support, and to all of you over here. Employee work is expanding. Xerxes, a young guy, is going to take over very quickly. We need more hands because the amount of work that's coming to us is beyond our bench strength and our team which has expanded. So please be active, please participate and participate beyond more than suggestion. Like I would say, helping hands are better than praying lips. So with this, I think we can conclude, and thanks again. And maybe on public demand, we will have once again for mentoring and have a session on mentoring. Right now, we had about family business. There is a lot to be explored about Jina and Kadgara family. Thanks again, and thank you all for participating. We had to request my managing committee members to leave. So that shows the spirit they have shown. And I thank them more than everyone else that they made way for other participants.
Humble apologies for this. Thank you, Sam, Homi, Cyrus. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.